Okay. I hope everything is good. All right. People, let me adjust myself. Good. I have to get a couple of this stuff here. My fellow Ambalanders, all money plays day. Today is the 23rd of September. And first, I want to congratulate our people for scoring a major victory, not only against Cameroon, but against those internal elements who have decided that spoliation, disruption is the only way through which they can be relevant. I congratulate all the Ambazonian forces across the 13 states. I congratulate all of our advocates and activists who believe in a vision anchored on the foundation of disrupting the exercise of unwarranted authority by Cameroon in Ambazonia. I congratulate our prisoners, our IDPs, and our refugees. And I congratulate all those who believe in Ambazonia, who believe in the aspirations of our people to be free. Make no mistake, this is a journey which this generation has embarked on. And this journey will lead to the destination of freedom in independence. It is not subject to review, neither by Cameroon nor the international system that has been bullied into submission and acquiescence. As I have said repeatedly, the price of acquiescence and surrender is far higher than the price you pay for standing up to the truth, for standing up to values upon which Western civilization is anchored. We call for a lockdown to make sure that we frustrate any attempt by the occupying power to use its calendar school year to attempt to exercise some level of authority over the Ambazonian territory. We rejected the strategy of using education, which they have denied us for long, to showcase Cameroon's continuous presence and power in our country. We also, through our actions in the last 2 weeks, rejected intoxication in the name of education and embrace our own system of education rooted in an approach that empowers our people and provide them with the skills they need to live a life of prosperity and happiness. My fellow people, the struggle for freedom is characterized by moments like these, when the people must make a conscious decision to go through moments of turmoil to uphold something as sacrosanct as the right to education. And I understand that many people are yet to understand why we take these stands, and they make the argument that we cannot sacrifice our children's education for independence and freedom. If our children were being provided with proper education under Cameroon, there wouldn't have been a struggle, because there wouldn't have been Cameroon. We would have been empowered enough, educated enough to be able to overcome the political asphyxiation that has characterized Cameroon's presence in our country. The provision of the kind of education that Cameroon has embarked on is deliberate, is designed to keep us in perpetual servitude, a dependency, and an impoverished people who can never have the opportunity or means to challenge their occupier. So the system of education imposed on us is deliberate. And we do not rise up and go through this pain and sacrifice to continuously, on a yearly basis, embrace a machinery of deceit and abuse that trains our own children to fight against our own nationalism, that tells the ordinary Ambazonian that being Cameroonian is more liberating than being Ambazonian. We have not risen simply to reject a system of deprivation. We also rose to put in place an alternative system of education, fledgling as it may be or sound, but one which is promising, one which is clear in its vision and provides more clarity in its process. So I call upon all of you to trust in the approach that we have adopted. And I ask every Ambazonian to embrace the Ambazonian system of education and our curriculum of education. There are still many questions that I know you have about our own system, but at least it is built on good intentions, unlike any other system that we have gone through since 1961. Education is the pride of every people. Education is the foundation for both the economic and political liberation of every people. We simply cannot sacrifice Ambazonians' right to knowledge on the premise that continuous embrace of Cameroon's system of education is going to educate our children. It's a pipe dream, and I think we must reject it wholeheartedly. Every nation that has had long-term prosperity or that has, along its journey, faced difficulties, has used the knowledge acquired through education to uplift itself. Every country that we have as Ambazonians struggle to escape our own prison too has developed itself, even with the knowledge on how to exploit others, how to extend their economic opportunities. Cameroon is dead and buried, and we must, as Ambazonians, become used to this reality. So once more, thanks to our people and to all of you who continuously believe in us. I say a few words to the weaver birds who got out and did everything to frustrate the lockdown. And I say it with utmost clarity. You may have a stake in the game, in the outcome of independence, but you are not an actor as far as the most fundamental issues about our liberation is concerned. For the past 8 years, since the consortium asked schools to be shut down, very few individuals ever thought about an alternative. We did, not only in designing a curriculum, but the kind of alternative institutions that our kids will use. Community-owned education serves the interests of communities. And I'm aware that parents will invest their blood and their treasure to make sure that their kids are properly educated, as long as they own both the process and the outcome. These weaver birds have never invested a dime in operating community schools, in supporting our children to be educated within a system that is owned by Ambazonia. They believe in propaganda and blackmail. They don't have a stake in the education of our children. They don't even have a stake in the defense of the homeland. They anointed themselves with all sorts of titles. They've not had the patience to build a constituted force for the defense and the liberation of our territory. I call them chop broke pot. And so they don't have any authority anymore to use social media and Facebook television channels to intoxicate, manipulate our people. We're going to call them out going forward. And I call upon our people to reject these anarchists people who have called for the murder of our forces, created enough chaos that have made us to lose territory, attack the integrity of the Ambazonian struggle on a daily basis, and have changed tactics every day to remain relevant. They've created enough division amongst their own constituted groups. They've created enough public perception of chaos, and that is not going to be allowed to continue. Ambazonians must believe in the steady hands that have kept us on the plow from day one up to today. We have not changed, we've not blinked, and will continue to pursue the enemy with unrelentless effort. And you can trust in what we do. Fellow Ambazonians, at midnight today, the 23rd of September, the lockdown called by all Ambazonian forces and my office will come to an end. As from tomorrow, we will intensify preparation towards the celebration of our Day of Independence. It's an important day in our history. And I invite all of you, wherever you may be, to join Ambazonians to celebrate their victory over tyranny, the victory of reason over barbarism, the victory of compromise over intolerance, the victory of respect for human rights over impunity, and the victory of the Ambazonian people over Cameroon. This victory has not been achieved without sacrifice. And we must continue to sacrifice to make sure we lay the foundation upon which the future of Ambazonia will be built. Today, I want to celebrate our prisoners. I want to celebrate the brave men and women who are in jail for Ambazonia. Akotuna Cafe. My fellow people, in the history of struggles, prisoners are the embodiment of the pain and tragedy and aspirations and hopes of a people. Their pain, their sacrifices is a collective indictment of the entire Amazonian people, but also gives us an opportunity to continue to understand why we fight. They have names. In Yaoundé Central, we have close to 300, Principal close to 40, Douala 100, Boya over 800 Ambazonians are held in captivity, Bafoussam about 100, Bamenda about 850, Mbalmayo, and scattered across different prisons that we do not know, over 500. These brave warriors have not only been deprived of their liberty, they've been subjected to both psychological and physical torture. They have been starved, they have been chained on their beds, they live in overcrowded prisons of intense heat. Most of them have lost their sanity. They have no dignity. Don't forget, most Ambazonian prisoners were captured, kidnapped from distant places. Their journey to detention was marked by horror. Those who were kidnapped from Biafra in Calabar went through the worst blight of torture that you can ever imagine. They were beaten, humiliated, water poured on them, they were stripped naked, they were denied water, they were denied food. They were interrogated for long hours, standing. They were deprived of sleep. They were denied access to friends, families, or lawyers. I want you to imagine, in the hands of the notorious bees in the middle of the night, where they have the powers of life and death over you. I want you to imagine the insult, the attack on their integrity. They urinated where they slept. They defecated where they slept. They had very little food, deprived of any light. That is what these men went through. But this is the other part. Never a day have they turned to blame anyone. Never seen a sign of regret in their words, in their actions, on their faces. Never castigated anyone, even those who betrayed them. Those are people who knew the consequences of their actions. Those are people who understood the barbarism and the depravity of the regime that they are fighting against. They embraced their pain and suffering as they dreamt of their hopes and their aspirations. I salute the Calabar prisoners. More than 40 something were kidnapped from Taraba, subjected to all forms of barbarism, almost disappeared for weeks and months. We never knew where they were. They could have been dropped from helicopters or airplanes into the high sea. They were at the mercy of the barbarians. I'm talking about the Bulus and all those who got recruited into the Cameroon vampire military for the sake of earning small living out of extortion and exercising unwarranted power over victims. They were abused, their integrity attacked, and they were flown from another country into Cameroon, stripped naked, subjected to torture, abused, and locked incommunicado. Their captors exercised all forms of power that they had over them. They have not blinked. Salute your courage. One fine morning at Nera Hotel, military men swooped on Ambazonians, took them into custody, drove them to the underground prison of the DSS. They didn't know exactly what crime they had committed, apart from the fact that they stood for a cause as genuine as any other cause any other people have fought against tyranny. They were locked up, deprived of electricity, food, subjected to psychological torture. They never knew what will happen to them. Interrogated constantly. The same enemy, vampire enemies they rose against, they saw them in a foreign country. Suddenly one day, they were transferred from one tyranny to another. And they were flown to Yaoundé, where they were detained incommunicado, subjected to long periods of interrogation. They have not blinked. I salute the detainees kidnapped from the Nera Hotel. From across the different barracks in Ambazonia, from across the battlefields of Ambazonia, brave men who rose up, fought against butchers and barbarians, who on the night of September 30th, 1961, transformed the tranquil of Ambazonia into a zone of chaos and occupation. These brave men, yesteryears, were teachers, lawyers, mechanics, drivers, husbands, wives. Suddenly, some were kidnapped, others were captured, subjected to torture, and then transported to the Boya prison, to the Douala prison, to the Bamenda prison, to the Bafoussam prison, and to the prisons of Yaoundé. I salute the bravery of all of our prisoners who, despite the horror, despite the trauma, the starvation, the deprivation, you have not blinked. My fellow people, the struggle for peace and justice in Ireland was characterized by the plight of the prisoners being center stage to every political campaign or diplomatic activities, including negotiations. The United Kingdom recognized the importance of Irish prisoners to the Irish, and their release, amnesty, was part and parcel of any conflict resolution model that was adopted by the conflict parties. And the outcome was positive. On the other hand, one of the reasons the Oslo Peace Accord between Palestine and Israel didn't work out well is because the Israelites have never truly considered Palestinian prisoners as quintessential for peace. And the outcome we have seen has been very negative. Prisoners and Ambazonian prisoners will remain and will be at the center of the termination of this conflict. And that will not be all. Lest you forget, members of the Irish Republican Army were subjected to torture, to cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment while under British detention. They brought up a case against the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom used the argument in court at the European Court of Human Rights, or then the European Commission of Human Rights, that these were terrorists, these were criminals. The European Commission on Human and People's Rights rejected the argument of the United Kingdom, irrespective of the actions of those in custody. Torture has been universally rejected as a crime against humanity, and every nation must never use torture either to exact confession or as a means of exercising power over those whether in custody or out of prison. And I can assure Ambazonian prisoners, I can assure each and every one of you that we will follow the same route that others have used before to make sure we hold Cameroon accountable for not only deprivation of liberty, but for subjecting you to torture, cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment, and passing you through kangaroo trials without proper representation and using evidence they have gathered through torture. Dr. Akwanga won his case at the Human Rights Committee using the same argument. I was part of the team that wrote the submission. Gorgie Dinka, the barrister, and our phone won his case at the Human Rights Committee using the same argument. Albert Womamuko, Titahonjo Matthew, all won their cases, and Cameroon was compelled to pay compensation to all of these persons. So I ask all of our prisoners to document what happened to you from the day you were kidnapped. If you can't write it, record it in an audio and send it through any person. It will reach my desk. State your names, your date of birth, where you were kidnapped, where you were detained, what happened to you. All of these things. We are going to constitute a case for every Ambazonian prisoner and force Cameroon to pay compensation for the crimes of torture, cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment, unfair trial, deprivation of liberty, arbitrary arrest, and subjecting you people to constant psychological battery. But note, the greatest compensation will be the day you walk out of prison into a freed homeland. And I've said this to you, and you can trust my every word, that you will not only be free, the reason for which you went to jail will be realized. I and my team and many others, we are working tirelessly to make sure that we intensify the resistance against the enemy, to make sure we undermine their ability to exercise authority, and to make sure we begin to develop and institutionalize sovereignty projects under areas of education, agriculture, and health that is owned by Ambazonians for Ambazonians. We cannot achieve freedom while economically totally dependent on Cameroon. We cannot achieve freedom when our system of education is driven by politicians in Yaoundé. We cannot talk of true freedom when we adopt a dependency mindset and we are afraid to break the link with Cameroon because we are uncertain. The struggle for freedom requires every people to begin to build their own institutions. It is not enough to know who you are fighting against. What is even more important is to know what you are fighting for and take necessary steps to make sure you lay the foundation upon which a truly free and independent Ambazonia will be built. My fellow Ambazonians, we will not be here today without the contributions of our prisoners, without their defiance, without their sacrifices. We will not be here today if they just blinked, if they betrayed. We will not be here today if they went to jail and spent their entire time blaming everybody else. We are here because, like our forces, our civilian population, they have made a firm commitment and rendezvous with freedom. They have decided to accept their fate and work extremely very hard to make sure the dreams and aspirations of the Ambazonian people, which they embody, is realized. And on behalf of the 10 million Ambazonians, I thank all Ambazonian prisoners for your sacrifices. And I thank even more your families, your moms, your dads, your children who have not seen you for years, your spouses, your friends, for going through this pain and have not given up on you. I thank each and every one of them on behalf of the 10 million Ambazonians. And I promise every family that the plight of our prisoners going forward will be center stage in our political strategy, not only about their material well-being and their spiritual well-being, but making sure that they know that they will be free. And I ask you in jail, when you get up tomorrow, you look into the eyes of your captors and to let them know you're part of the never again generation that will not blink on the outcome of independence. I call on all of our people to continuously be generous to our prisoners, not to judge them by their instant actions, not to judge them by their weaknesses. For deprivation of liberty deprive every human being of the full faculties to act with rationality, and to see them as victims, to provide continuous support as you have done from the day they were picked up. All of our prayer warriors to continue to pray for them, for all those in Ambazonia to recognize them, and to make sure your children grow up to know those who lost their liberty in the name of the freedom of Ambazonia. Thank you from the depth of my heart, and you can be rest assured I may not be in a position to provide you whatever you want, but you must know that the reasons for which you went to jail will be achieved. That is the greatest gift I can promise you from all of us out here to all of you in there. You make us proud. You've raised Ambazonia above yourself. You've given us hope by your very presence in the hands of your enemy. You've made them know that Ambazonia will become a reality. When the barbarians invaded our land, because of their anger and lack of respect for our humanity, they burned down thousands of villages. They rendered hundreds of thousands of our people homeless. Hundreds of thousands have become IDPs. Millions have been displaced across borders, including into Cameroon. I remember you today, and I celebrate every internally displaced person and every refugee. I would like to remind the refugees that the president of Rwanda was a refugee, that the president of Uganda was a refugee, that Einstein was a refugee, that the first female United States Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright, was a refugee. And that being a refugee, you should never see it as a curse. And despite what you go through, see it as an opportunity to rise up above self and put country at the center of everything you do. That is why I salute the bravery of our refugees across ground 1 and ground 2. They have demonstrated constantly through building collective associations and organizations to cater for their well-being, but also to make sure that they remain as a group bonded together by the tragedy they have gone through and by the hope that someday they will be free. Despite the attack on refugee camps in ground 1, despite the institutionalization by detractors of division amongst these refugees, there is one thing that keeps them together: a belief in Ambazonia. You have not blinked, you've not surrendered, you've not submitted to the difficulties. And I thank all those individuals and groups of individuals who have kept your well-being at the centerpiece of their own political activism. I thank you for your courage. Thank you for your sacrifices. To our refugees in Cameroon, many people have asked, how is it possible that you are able to take refuge in the belly of the devil? And they have used that to attempt to undermine the impunity with which Cameroon has acted within Amazonia. They have even questioned the notion of genocide as being inconsistent with the application of refugee, of the right to be a refugee in the country of your tormentor. I have said time and again, there are many examples across the globe where the only place that victims have been able to sought refuge has been in the belly of their tormentors. And the Amazonian situation will not be different. Amazonians in Cameroon have been attacked, some have been raped, but I also thank the generosity of Ambazonians in the diaspora, Ambazonians in Cameroon, and even some Cameroonians who have accepted you in their homes, provided you with some level of support. And I ask you never to forget where you're coming from. Never to forget those you left behind who never had the chance to escape. To all of our refugees in the Western Hemisphere, those in places like Norway, like myself, where you do not face the level of torments and tragedies that those within our continent and within Cameroon face. Never forget why you escaped. Never forget that it was Bill Clinton who worked extremely very hard as a president of the United States because he's an Irish descendant to broker for peace between the United Kingdom and Northern Ireland, to bring peace to his countrymen and women, and become an agent for freedom for the Ambazonian people. I call on all of our people never to embrace the same people who are the very reasons for which we are in exile. Never forget that your tormentors come in different colors and shapes. They come for you to mobilize resources for them, to dance for them, to celebrate them, and they go back to laugh at you. Exile in the past was a place where people were shipped to be tormented. And Ambazonians must never embrace exile as a place where they go to find happiness. This is the only period in history that I've seen people in exile find it more comfortable than being in their homeland. My fellow people, exile is a punishment. It's a place where you are separated from your families. It's a place where your soul is separated from your physical body. It's a place where you are taken away from your natural habitat and dropped somewhere, and your only pursuit is money. It will never buy you happiness. It will never give you joy. It will never make you a dignified person. And even your host will be laughing at you from morning to evening. Remember, where we have taken refuge, brave men and women rose up in these places to fight against tyranny, to create the enabling environment for economic development and prosperity. Never forget, we must remember that only 0.01% of Ambazonians have left our country. 99.99% are still trapped in misery. Your remittances by Western Union, MoneyGram will never salvage even one village. You can gather all of your salaries on a daily basis and ship them down there. You will remain broke in exile. They will remain broke in the homeland. Until we all make the determination that we will have to create the environment in Ambazonia of opportunities, of employment, of education, of political freedom, we shall never have peace. We will take our mothers, separate them from their husbands. They become our babysitters in exile. They will rise up in our homes and say they want to go back to their own homes. We must reject selfishness and embrace the kind of attitude all rebels have embraced to free their country. Remember millions of Israelites moving back to stand for their own freedom. Remember millions of Ukrainians going back to stand for their own freedom. Remember millions of others in different places taking a stand for freedom against tyranny. Exile is punishment, is psychological torture, is separation, is dehumanization, is humiliation. Homeland is homeland. And we must put our hands together like people from one place, like people from one creed, like people who are fighting for one destiny, and invest in the liberation of our country so that our parents, those who have died, we can tender their graves. Those who are sick can go into a hospital with dignity and be treated, so that those children who do not have the opportunity to have people in exile can go to school. The grandmothers who are all in the villages who do not have a child in exile might have hope. so that the prisoners might know that they will be going home someday. So the IDPs will leave their areas of squalor into a place of hope and comfort, so that you yourself, trapped in exile, will be able to fly one day and land in an airport in Tico, in Manfe, in Bafut, where you will hear from a loudspeaker, "Welcome to Ambazonia." That is why we fight, and that is why we must never give up. My fellow Ambazonians, on the 6th of October, we will be launching the Ambazonia manifesto. Maybe I can find a piece of that manifesto, the vision, to play it for you just for a few minutes. This is very important. The people who never prepare will live like Cameroon. They will escape from one system of colonialism and enter the other. Ambazonia, we must prepare for the kind of Ambazonia that we want. We must plan for tomorrow. This is part 3 of our manifesto. I'll play a few seconds. It's a powerful piece of document that lays out the vision for the kind of political institutions, economic system, social system that we want to live in.
Welcome to part 3 of this manifesto. We begin by looking at the vision. Firstly, the foundation and principles, beginning with the key questions of the foundation and principles. Let us be spared of floating states wavering in the wind, of no identity and no outlook, and as such without anchor. Let this nation be grounded on a solid foundation. What are the stones that make up this foundation? What are the pillars that support the house? What is the roof over it? And by what sun does it shine forth? Else it remains in darkness. Point 1, the foundation. What is the foundation of our existence as a country? Upon what framework must the Ambazonian administrative state be organized? The solid foundation of national sovereign existence, which is also the framework of our government, is the Ambazonian view of the human person and the Ambazonian constituent primordial societies and their organization to meet supreme standards of life and respectability. Point 2. Throughout history, the Ambazonian people have viewed the human person as a rational being that is both physical and spiritual, and seen his or her individual needs as intertwined with the needs of others in the society to which one forms a part. All Ambazonian societies are constituted as communal systems, families, clans, quarters, villages, etc., in which the lives and actions of individuals find deeper meaning and greater fulfillment in the common good relations with others, which cannot be achieved through individualism and insatiable self-centered desires. Point 3. Therefore, the organizational framework of the Ambazonian society and the foundation of its government is responsive commonwealth. In this regard, government is judged by its ability to promote the common good of the Ambazonian people. Thus, it must be structured to provide features and mechanisms that allow individual reason to be summed up into a common will. Point 4. The foundation stones and principles are the values and ideals that constitute the bedrock of our existence as a country. Our country stands on a foundation of 4 stones that embody our identity and outlook, which the historical Southern Cameroon's government incarnated. These foundational stones are freedom, rule of law, peace, and the just common good. Point.
We have put together an audio copy of this manifesto. It's close to 1.5 hours long. We will present to you our vision for Ambazonia, what you are fighting for, what kind of Ambazonia you want to build, what kind of Ambazonia you want to leave behind to your children, upon what kind of foundation this Ambazonia will rest. We cannot make the mistake to believe we will leave this noble work for the future if we never took upon ourselves to begin working on a curriculum of education. We will be going back to Cameroon to drink our own vomit and taking in their system of education. My people, you may not like what we do, but at least you take pride for the first time that we have instituted something that has become normalized within Ambazonia: community schools. Community schools is not just a name. It means it is a community project. The community is the primary investor, and the community becomes the primary beneficiary. Everything we have conceived and we have articulated has been designed to hand back power to the Ambazonian people, whether it's in their army, their system of education, and in the way that we have constructed the manifesto. Between Sunday and the 6th, we will be bringing bits and pieces of this manifesto onto your desktop in every home so you can listen, so you can embrace it, so you can become part of the vision for the kind of country that our prisoners have lost their liberty to be able to have. That General Ivo, No Pity and others lost their life to be able to have. That you and myself have spent days and nights fighting to be able to have. That the 10 million Ambazonians who stayed at home for 2 weeks have sacrificed for. That the refugees and the IDPs who've not only lost their liberty, but lost their heritage, have sacrificed for. We must do our homework. And I can ask and promise each and every one of you that we as Ambazonians must work extremely hard on a daily basis, not only to envision the kind of country that we want, but to make sure we leave our own footprints on the documents that will be produced about Ambazonia. That is the only way we can take ownership. Take note, Ambazonians, Cameroon is not only coming back, it's not coming back. It's a lost cause. Let propaganda not fool you. Propaganda doesn't win wars. If it did, Cameroon would have won. I have said repeatedly that for the past 61 years, Cameroon has counted on extreme violence to intimidate, frighten, and kill people. It has counted on mass incarceration, detention. It has counted on political manipulation using elites, chiefs, enablers to be able to undermine the aspirations of every generation that have risen up against the two men who have ruled Cameroon. It has counted on using the monopoly of information, revise, intoxication to be able to defeat the power of persuasion and reason. In designing our strategy for our freedom, we factored all of these historical strategies that have worked for Cameroon. And for each of them, every one of them, we chip them inch by inch and make a mockery of every propaganda, every public manipulation. We have denied them the power of international representation to speak on our behalf, to bat on our behalf. And we have exposed them, and we will do so on a daily basis. And for all those who continue to collaborate to enable a system of deprivation and tyranny, they must be rest assured that this generation will keep you in exile, in armor cars. We will make it difficult for you to even bury your death, especially those who've battered and who have enabled a system of impunity against us. This is a promise I have made to you people. I do not, by this, tell you the journey is going to be easy. I may not make it. You may not see it. But as a people, we must be in the position to make sure that Ambazonia prevails. And not only prevails, but inspire Cameroonians to rise up and take over their country from these barbarians and cartel who wreak havoc on both the Cameroonian people and the Ambazonian people. To all diplomats who sit and reside in Yaoundé, take note, before you came, your predecessor was bullied. Before your predecessor came, others were bullied. Biya has counted on bullying and threat to make you submit to his barbarism, his murder, his looting, his bankrupting an entire state and creating the kind of insecurity that will permeate across your own borders. You must take a stand against this regime. The price of acquiescence is far higher than the price of taking a stand with the values upon which your own societies are anchored. God bless you all. Happy Independence Day in advance.